Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magento Business Intelligence Essentials, Making Data Easier. My name is Bob Moore. I'm the head of Magento Business Intelligence here at Magento. You can find me on Twitter at Robert J. Moore. I will be keeping track of any tweets or questions that come through in today's broadcast. You can also be sure to use the chat functionality inside of GoToWebinar if you have any questions that you may want to submit. Our topic today is a very exciting one to me personally. We're talking about Magento Business Intelligence Essentials, which is a new tier of the Magento Business Intelligence product that we released earlier this year at Imagine that has seen some of the most rapid adoption among Magento products I think that has ever been seen. And there are a lot of really good reasons for that we'll step through, but our goal today is really to do two things. In addition to sharing a little bit about the BI Essentials product with you, we're also going to talk a little bit about the metrics that matter most for businesses like yours, helping people who are involved in digital commerce use data to run their businesses better, what some of the best reports are in that world, and how we achieve those reports inside of the BI Essentials product. So we've got a lot to cover. I'm excited to hop right in, and please do keep the questions coming. We'll try to get some Q&A in at the end as well. So what is Magento Business Intelligence? Well, at its core, Magento BI is data infrastructure and dashboarding all in one place. Inside of a single platform, we solve the problems of consolidating your data that may exist in multiple sources, such as your Magento database, creating custom metrics that are able to be used and analyzed by business users who may not always have formal analytical training, and then providing a platform through which you can collaborate with your team to actually make data-driven decisions without needing to worry about the underlying technical headaches. The exciting thing about Magento BI, really, particularly now that Essentials is in the fold, is that it's very easy and affordable to get started, but as your company becomes more advanced and sophisticated from an analytical standpoint, you are actually able to add additional complexity. You can start to do things like customer lifetime value analysis, cohort analysis, etc., all through the platform as your needs evolve. So it really is a platform with a very high ceiling on it, but a very easy level of access for getting started. So I want to talk a little bit about these tiers because the Magento Business Intelligence Essentials offering is relatively new. Many people who know the Magento Business Intelligence product, or the RJ Metrics product as it was originally known before it was acquired by Magento, are thinking about the Magento BI Pro tier. Now, the Pro tier is a really, really powerful full-stack business intelligence solution. It is our most powerful version of the platform that allows merchants to connect and analyze their entire Magento database. It allows them to connect third-party tools from software as a service platforms and ad networks and other data sources. And it also allows for just custom implementations and totally unrestricted functionality of the data management platform that exists inside of the tool. This is an awesome solution that is used by hundreds of merchants, and that is a growing number every month. And it starts at just $500 per month. So it's fairly easy to get started there. But what we wanted to do with Essentials was make it even easier and make it so that merchants throughout their entire life cycle really had access to a platform that would provide them with really strong analytics, the ability to go in and understand what's going on inside of their Magento stores, and also have the ability to scale up and grow their analytics installs through tools like Pro in the future. And that's where BI Essentials came from. So this product starts at just $100 per month. And in terms of bang for your buck and amount of power that exists inside of a platform, it's really unmatched in the competitive space at that price point. It's a very, very powerful solution for Magento merchants. We'll talk a lot today about what's inside of Essentials because it provides a good lens into the power of using a business intelligence platform in general, and also a lot of the valuable insights that might be hidden within your Magento data today. So here's our agenda for the day. We are basically going to step through all the different dashboards that come standard with Magento BI Essentials. So in total, there's 5 dashboards here. There is also a 6th mystery dashboard you can add if you attach your Google Analytics data, which is something that you can do with Essentials as well. But we'll step through these top 5 today, pull a few reports from each, and I'm going to talk about, through case studies and benchmarking data, why those analyses matter and why it is that you should be watching them closely within your business. So without further ado, let's jump right in here, starting with the executive overview dashboard. So this is the first dashboard that most people see when they load up the BI Essentials product. It's really a high-level performance overview. This is the dashboard that the CEO of your company might be hitting refresh on 100 times a day to keep an eye on these key performance indicators that really are showing the top-of-mind metrics for company leadership and stakeholders. You see things here like revenue, number of customers, number of orders placed, etc. And really accurate revenue reporting is a cornerstone of what we bring to the table with Essentials. Whether you call it gross merchandise value or sales or revenue or demand, there are different terms in different businesses, but it's really the key metric that your business is watching to understand its growth at the top line, which is a really important part of the business story. To some people, the most important part. And there's a reason it's so important, and it's because growth is king. We have benchmarking data that I'll talk through in a number of different parts of the presentation today that show us that the top performing companies, the ones that really grow the fastest in their first several years of business, aren't just marginally better than the companies in the next few cohorts. They are many, many times better. And that faster growth translates to more cumulative revenue and translates to much higher valuations as these companies continue to operate. So what you're looking at here is a chart that contains different groupings of benchmarked companies. So we've been able to pull in data from hundreds and hundreds of online retailers and basically break them up between the top performers, so the top 25% of the pack, and then 3 other groups, each representing the second, third, and fourth 25% of the merchant population. And the orange line here, that beautiful Magento orange, is representative of those top performers, the top 25%. And what you see here is just their total cumulative revenue in their first 3 years of business. And you can see it right here visually, how quickly those top revenue performers are running away from the pack and really establishing themselves as clear leaders. And we'll see this again and again, the difference in the performance of these top companies. And your understanding of your own business's growth and the metrics around the top line of your business can have a really big impact on how you prioritize growth and top-line customer acquisition as you're continuing to manage your business. So some really, really important insights exist even in those very top-level executive reports. But it gets even more fun when you start to dig into other dashboards like customer retention. So the customer retention dashboard is doing exactly what you think it might. It's focusing on existing customers and their likelihood to come back and buy again. But there are a lot of inputs to this. So it's not just about did they come back and purchase again. There is a lot that can be learned around things like how long did it take for them to come back and make a repeat purchase? What happens to the average order value of repeat purchases over time? And what are things like the repeat order probability? So the chances that someone comes back and buys again based on having bought 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. These are all charts that come standard on this dashboard and that you can access immediately with Magento BI Essentials. And there's a few that I want to drill into here a little more deeply because I think they're very interesting. One in particular here is first time versus repeat orders. Again, this may seem like a very simple ratio to calculate, but there's some very real power here around how it is that your business is growing and how the repeat customers that come back and buy again and again are actually contributing to your compounding growth over time. And let me show this to you from a benchmarking perspective. So this is a chart that contains, again, data from those several hundred e-commerce companies that we studied that shows 2 lines. One is the percentage of revenue that is coming from new purchasers. That's that greenish blue line that you see. And then one is the percentage of revenue coming from repeat customers. And this is shown over time for the first 36 months of these businesses' lives. And this particular chart shows everybody except the top performers. So this is just kind of the middle of the pack, your average companies. And you see this really interesting phenomenon. Now, these two lines, by definition, they always have to add up to 100% because they're percentages and they're mutually exclusive groups. And what you see is by about the 13 or 14 month mark there, the two lines converge. And in the average company, you get this effect where the percentage of revenue coming from new business is almost exactly 50%, and the percentage of revenue coming from repeat purchasers is also almost exactly 50%. It's kind of magical how we see these lines converge in so many businesses, where you get a really stable balance of sales coming from new customers and repeat customers. Now, let's look at what this chart looks like for the top performers that are out there. This is a notably different chart in a number of different ways, and I want to pull some of these out and call them out for you. The first thing is that these two lines, if you compare it to the previous chart, actually start a lot closer together. Even in month one, they're showing 20% of revenue coming from repeat purchasers. And that is kind of unintuitive because you've got to ask the question, naturally, how on earth could a business have 20% of its sales coming from repeat customers if it's a brand new business that's never had any customers before? How can you have a repeat customer if you have no customers? Well, the answer is within that very first month of their operation, they have enough customers that show up and buy once and then come back and buy again, that just the repeat sales from that existing base in the very first month represent 20% of sales. That is a really, really remarkable, easy to detect early indicator of a business that has a product and marketing strategy that is driving a high degree of loyalty. This kind of indicator is a really, really good sign that the work that's being done on the loyalty side is effective. On the contrary, if you see numbers that are significantly lower than that, it's a very obvious area where a merchant can spend energy on the marketing and on the productization and merchandising side to try and create relationships with customers that drive a lot more loyalty. So that's a really clear case of things you can watch in these dashboards early on and learn a lot about the dynamics of your business. The other thing we see that's really interesting here is that these lines at about that 18-month mark actually cross each other. And there's a big period in the second half of this chart where there's actually a higher percentage of revenue coming from repeat purchasers than new purchasers. Now remember, these are the companies that are growing the fastest, and that means they're also acquiring customers at a really high rate. So despite the fact that they're doing a lot and being very successful on the acquisition side, even still, the percentage of revenue from repeats is higher than the percentage from new customers in these out months. So this is really just an indication of where a lot of that growth is coming from in these businesses that are top performers and that run away from the pack. It's in loyalty, it's in repeat purchases, and this dashboard is where you can track it. The other thing that is really important to note here is, I'm sure you've all heard of the 80-20 rule, where, by popular convention, 20% of your population may be having up to 80% of the impact on a data set. That really holds true in a lot of ways in the analysis of top customers. So if we look across all these benchmark companies and we see basically how influential the top customers really are, we find that on average, the top 1% of customers for a merchant actually represent 19% of their revenue. And that cascades its way all the way down that ratio. The one that I really think hits home the most for me is actually that bottom stat there, where the top 50% of customers represent 84% of the revenue for your typical merchant. Now, what this says to me is, while you may do a lot of work on retargeting your existing base or sending email marketing or custom marketing efforts to your existing customers, the reality is that if you cut those efforts in half and just focus on the very top 50% of the people that are transacting with your website, you can cut your work in half, but actually still have an influence on 84% of the revenue drivers for your business. So when you start to talk about personalization, when you start to talk about individual outreach or spending more attention to smaller subsegments of your customer base, if you can identify who these top performers are, you can disproportionately spend energy on them and get disproportionate returns. And that is a really, really important marketing strategy for a modern merchant, and one that is enabled by these dashboards, because you end up with visibility into specifically who your top customers are by any of these metrics that you want to look at, whether it's lifetime revenue, average order value, number of purchases, time in between purchases. You can drill down and actually create customer lists that have as many customers or as high a percentage as you'd like by these metrics, and then export them into your marketing automation solutions and other things through a CSV exporter tool. So really powerful stuff, and all of it is included with Essentials. Customer loyalty, a really big deal. Another really big deal, of course, is orders. There's an entire dashboard dedicated to just the actual transactions that are happening and what's happening inside those orders. So average order value, the products that are included, order statuses, coupon usage, things like that, they all tell stories about what's going on inside of your business over time. So one of these charts that's really interesting to study is average order value by order number. So it is kind of an interesting phenomenon that we see this across merchants really consistently. The more orders a customer has placed, the higher the average order value goes. So more loyal customers, they're not just buying more by frequency, they're actually buying more in their cart. And that, to quantify that, can be a really powerful thing, because it can speak to, you know, if a repeat order is 30% more valuable than a new order from an AOV perspective, that may influence the number of dollars you're willing to spend to market to those existing customers that may make a repeat purchase. And these kinds of insights are really valuable on the quantitative side of marketing strategy. The other thing you can do is you can actually conduct analyses around some of the causes and effects that might exist inside of your operations from a merchandising perspective. So one of our clients are good friends over at Signature Hardware. They were nice enough to share this data with us and allow us to present it at shop.org last year. And this is a really great case study around something that you might be able to do right inside of Essentials, which is they had this this item that they were selling that was at a relatively high price point. It was about a $730 price point. It was a vanity. So Signature Hardware sells home features and fixtures and furniture on the internet. So they have this tendency for their customers to make really big purchases or buy big items where price sensitivity is not always known. Some of their items are exclusive or hard to get or hard to ship, so it's not a very commoditized business. So they wanted to figure out a way to actually draw the demand curve and understand the impact of price on demand. So this is just some data from a very real experiment they ran, where they looked at the velocity of items sold per day at different price points for this same vanity. And what they found was that their demand actually did not change when they raised the price of this product from $729 to around $800. It stayed the same, and that's the orange line there, and then the blue line is their revenue from these sales, which grew. However, they then decided to raise the price again to $914.95, and they saw the demand per day plummet. And obviously the revenue per day plummeted proportionally with it. So what they discovered was they were able to actually draw a really nice demand curve, this kind of quasi-parabolic shape here, and identify this this maximum, or at least local maximum, around pricing this product. So being able to run some of that experimentation with a very, very low overhead in specific circumstances has been a great lever for companies like Signature Hardware, and it's a thing that you can do as well. Moving on, let's talk a little bit more about products. So we did have some details in the orders dashboard around what products were included with orders and things like that, but we want to spend an entire dashboard just talking about products themselves and the characteristics of those products. So inside this dashboard, you find things like which of my products are selling, what does it really mean for the business, reports on bestsellers, what products get ordered, the growth rates of those products, and the like. So in our benchmark, the thing that really led us to want to focus on identifying products and product values inside of these dashboards was the fact that we see such aggressive growth in the number of items offered by merchants per year. So when we went into the data and actually studied the number of unique SKUs where merchants sold at least one item of those SKUs, so it's not just populating a database with items, these are actual sales. in their respective years of existence, we found that while the average merchant that's 1 year old sells about 2,000 distinct SKUs, by the time they make it to their 5th year of existence, the average merchant is actually selling over 14,000 distinct SKUs in a given year. So it's a really remarkable amount of growth. And while early stage merchants may feel like they have a really good handle on, okay, I know what my top sellers are, I know what the top performers are, I know what categories really matter to me as a merchant, by the time you get out into these later stages of maturity, it becomes literally humanly impossible to keep all that data in your brain. And we see an increasing rate of there being biases around operators who feel like they have this understanding, because the changes that occur inside of this data can happen so rapidly and across so many different facades of the data in a population of 14,000 or more SKUs that you have to have a system in place to detect these things and to monitor where there are hot zones, where there are cool zones inside of your product catalog. So this becomes a merchandiser's dream, because you can really have a handle on that data in a very affordable, visible way. So, you know, the most simple example is you can view revenue by product ordered. Obviously, you can slice and dice this by a number of other dimensions that are available. You can also, in a lot of these product names, you'll find the variants, so you'll see sizes, you'll see colors here available, and our filtering and grouping system actually allows you to filter and segment by things. So very easy to build the charts of show me only the things in certain sizes of certain colors with certain brands, and view which ones are performing and view the growth rates of those products as well. So this brings us to my personal favorite, which is the customer activity dashboard. This is where you can really tie a lot of this story together and get a good understanding of what's going on inside of your customer activity and what's going on inside of your merchant base. So this is where you see things like cohort analysis, where you see things like customer lifetime revenue. So this is a proxy for lifetime value that shows how things are growing over time. And you can even dig into things like coupon usage and things like that. So, you know, this is a fairly standard report that comes out of the box with MBI Essentials, where you're looking at how discounting or providing coupons changes the story perhaps about your customers. Having this dimension available is a really powerful thing, and we've seen that in our benchmarking data as well. So, you know, no matter what time of year it is, it's always important to be thinking about the holidays. And one thing that we see here in our data about discounting during the holiday season is we can actually find the impact of acquiring customers during Black Friday weekend and what the impact of discounts is in terms of how loyal the customers are that you're bringing in the door. So the analysis that I'm showing here, this includes benchmarking data from a large number of customers and merchants, and this is all about repeat buying. So this is not at all about the products that get sold or the revenue that gets generated on Black Friday weekend. It's entirely about those customers and how likely they are to come back and buy again, or are they one and done. So here's the comparison that's happening. If you look at a typical customer that shows up throughout the year, and that customer comes back and spends $1 at some point in the future, for a customer that you acquire during Black Friday weekend, on average, they're actually only going to come back and buy 81 cents, you know, over the same exact time period, that first 6 months. So that 81 cents creates really a differential there that is a 19% drop in the amount of incremental revenue you can expect, the amount of loyalty you can expect, and the amount of customer lifetime value that exists, which should have a really important impact on how you think about paying to acquire customers or bring back existing customers during Black Friday weekend. Now, one of the ways that you influence that is by doing things like discounting, giving away coupon codes and other things. And what we found was that for that typical customer that comes and makes a first purchase at some point during the year and then spends $1 later in the year, they're only spending 74 cents later in the year if they were acquired via a coupon or via a discount during Black Friday weekend. So that means that while you may be driving more sales, you need to counterbalance that acquisition value with an anticipated drop of about 26% in terms of the amount of repeat purchases and loyalty and lifetime value that's going to show up from those customers. So the important thing here is that A customer is not a customer is not a customer when you're dealing with discounts. You are changing the profile of loyalty that happens when you acquire customers through that, and you need to be able to quantify that change, because if you don't, you can find yourself in a situation where you're actually overpaying to acquire and maybe over discounting based on what you end up getting at the end of the day. Cohort analysis is probably one of the more complex and interesting analyses that exist, and you do get a cohort analysis chart with your Magento BI Essentials dashboards. Cohort analysis is really just a way of comparing customers that you acquired at different times in an apples-to-apples way, so you can make sure that your newer customers are just as loyal as your older ones. So what you see on the x-axis here is not the calendar months, but instead the months in the lifetime of these different customer groups, and each line is a customer group. So the blue line there is customers acquired in January 2012. The orange line at the bottom is customers acquired in April 2012. This is just a sample chart, but if you look at this cohort analysis, you can see that while all of these different customer groups started out spending similar amounts of dollars in month one, as you watch them grow over time, they deviate from each other pretty considerably, whereby the January 2012 cohort is actually spending in aggregate, on average, about $90 per customer over time, whereas the April 2012 group, by that same period, in month 6, they've only spent about $65 per merchant, so or per customer. So pretty big gap there that you can't always see in month 1, but starts to emerge by month 2, month 3. If I saw a chart like this and I was managing acquisition spend for a business, this would be a major, major red flag. Alarm bells start going off here, because you're seeing that while your customers may look the same early on, relatively early in their life cycle, even by month 3 there, you start to see a pretty clear measured deviance in how loyal they are and how likely they are to come back and buy again. So that is a very important thing to watch, and a very important way of looking at the data to understand if your current tactics, even if they look good on the top line, are really driving loyalty in terms of repeat purchases later on. And the chart that we show in Essentials is very similar. And here you can see an example of what a version of that chart looks like. And depending on the merchant, there can be really large deviances here that require action, or you can be a little closer to this one where you see a pretty steady trend where the customer populations look similar over time. So to sum things up here, really, I hope that it is clear to everyone on the line that data is a very, very powerful tool for merchants of all sizes. So what we've seen time and time again is that the use of data inside of folks who are doing business online is a really clear driver of growth and strategy in an efficient, effective manner. And when you are deploying data as part of your core business strategy, you end up moving yourself into that top of the pack, and frankly, being more aware of where in the pack you are. Data is really the key to doing that. So we want to bring that to every merchant that we can, and every merchant that's using Magento, and that for us means creating this Essentials product and creating these dashboards that include key indicators specifically around the data-driven performance of your business. And it ends up becoming a best practice in a lot of ways for companies to do this, to monitor these on an ongoing basis, and to use them across the organization, from executives to marketers to merchandisers and beyond. So with Essentials, we really help solve this problem. You gain an easy, simple, and affordable way to quickly access these kinds of insights, and know that as your business grows and becomes more mature and more sophisticated, you've got more and more opportunity to grow with the product, expand the functionality, move up to our Pro product, but not have to worry in the early days about making a big financial commitment. So that's why we built this product. That's why we're excited to extend a free trial offer to everybody that's on the line here today. You can go to magento.com/product/businessintelligence/essentials, or just head to magento.com and you can navigate your way to the product sign-up page. Really easy thing to do, easy to get set up, and we hope that everybody on the line will give it a shot, because the trial is free, the setup is easy, and I can assure you personally that it is worth your while. I happen to be in my Magento BI dashboard every single day, and it's a big part of how we run the business here. So the sign-up process is a piece of cake. You just register, you confirm your email address, you connect your database, which is a pretty easy step for any member of your technical team, and then Essentials does the rest and really builds out these dashboards and analyses for you and takes you on a self-guided tour. So with that said, I think we've got a ton of questions that have come in. Oh, this is awesome. So I'm going to just run down the list here and answer a few. Feel free to keep them coming in, and in the meantime, I will continue answering with the time we've got. I did get a question here, will this session be recorded? Absolutely yes, we are recording right now. We are going to make this available to the attendees and all the registrants after the fact, and hopefully our marketing team will also get this up and online for folks that didn't get a chance to register. So if you have colleagues that you want to share this with, this is something that we will record and share. Oh, really good question coming in. Is Magento BI available for CE merchants? The answer is yes, yes, yes. In fact, there's an important other piece of info here as well, which is not only is it available for CE merchants, you can get Magento BI for merchants that are using Magento 1. So even if you are not yet someone that has made it over to Magento 2, you can be using Magento BI regardless. So if you are a CE merchant on M1, if you're an EE merchant on M1, EE on M2, et cetera, any permutation of versions and licenses, Magento BI is compatible. And there's a reason we did this. And the biggest reason is we think that business intelligence and insights into your data is actually something that helps businesses move forward and move up the versioning on their Magento systems sooner. Because visibility into what's going on inside the business starts to reveal where there's value in some of the functionality that gets unlocked when you upgrade to Enterprise, and some of the improvements that exist when you upgrade to Magento 2. And because we offer compatibility with Magento 1 and Magento 2, you can rest assured that during your upgrade process, you can actually have consistent dashboards that you can still log into every day that are not going to change when you upgrade your product. By being compatible with both, it means we can pull in the data from both. It means we can combine that data, and you don't need to worry about losing your historical insights, and you don't need to worry about losing any kind of visibility into your business during that transition process. So yes, it's available for M1 and it's available for CE is the short answer to the question there. The next question that came up here is around a question around migrating to Magento 2. So in a similar vein to what the question was around compatibility, folks that are doing work to migrate to Magento 2 in 2018, should we wait, or will there be no impact if we sign up for MBI now? Per my comments a second ago, definitely just sign up now. The overhead associated with getting onboarded is really, really low. It's the kind of thing that you can do in a really short time span. If you've got someone from your technical team available to help out, you can literally do it in a matter of minutes in some cases. So in that case, being up and running now is something that's going to get you value sooner and something that's not going to cause you much pain when you migrate later. So I would definitely encourage people to go ahead and jump right in. Got a question here, how do we download? So here's the fun part about Magento BI. Magento BI is a software as a service product, which means you don't download. The entire delivery of this product is done through the web, and we have an infrastructure that is set up inside of Amazon Web Services, where we're able to systematically do the data replication, do the data cleansing, and the delivery of the dashboards. This has a number of benefits to it. Number one is that you don't need to worry about hardware and infrastructure and uptime when it comes to making these things consistently work and consistently pull in data. In the world of business intelligence, that's a really big deal, and it's a thing that can cause a lot of pain for companies that don't have the internal resources to set up and manage these things themselves. So that's a big part of it. The other thing that's a benefit is that you can actually benefit from our team continuously rolling out improvements, upgrades, and things that just make the system bigger, stronger, faster over time without needing to worry about a long release cycle. So from a downloading perspective, it's not a thing that you need to worry about. It's just about connecting data. And another question that I see that is related that is probably worth touching on, since it's a SaaS application, there's some questions around where the data gets stored and how much control you have over that. You ultimately have a lot of control over what data we are pulling in. So number one, for merchants that are in the EU that may have some concerns about data leaving the EU, we do offer the ability to use our EU data center so that you can pull the data in and have it never actually leave the EU in the course of being analyzed. You can even take it a step further if you want, This is pretty rarely used because of all the other kind of security precautions that we provide. But if you want to be extra safe or your company has extremely strong restrictions around personally identifiable information, you can actually run the vast majority of our analyses that show up in these dashboards without syncing any PII to our system. So if you have fully anonymized data where it's just information on your products and transactions and an anonymized customer ID of some kind that does not indicate any kind of PII, you can still do all these analyses around customer loyalty, repeat purchases, what your most valuable products are, cohort analysis, things like that. They all still work. The only thing that really changes is your ability to export those customer lists. You'll be exporting customer IDs instead of email addresses, and then you, within your own secure environment, can match those back up to get the emails out. So we've thought of a lot of things around use cases and user personas from that standpoint, and excited to have something for everybody when it comes to that offering. A question around adding Google Analytics to Magento BI or just using GA by itself. We get a lot of questions about this. Google Analytics is the perfect complement to Magento BI. It is not a competitive tool at all, and let me explain why. Google Analytics is excellent at the top of the funnel, capturing all of the interactions and events that take place as people land on your website, click through different pages, experience different click streams, accomplish different goals at the very high points of your funnel. And even if you have the GA e-commerce functionality set up, starting to track some of those initial transactions that happen and revenue that gets generated. That's all really valuable stuff, but it only has very minimal overlap with what we do in Magento BI, because the benefits of the BI platform are all about control, history, and being able to manage what appears inside of your analyses. So think, for example, about the way that Google Analytics is implemented. It's using JavaScript. It's capturing events in real time. And by virtue of doing that, it leaves it prone to some data consistency and accuracy issues that could occur. For example, what about refunded orders? What about orders where you may have some kind of nuance around how the payment is processed? Maybe somebody used a gift card, or maybe there was some kind of currency conversion that needed to take place. All of these nuances are very, very difficult to capture and manipulate directly inside of Google Analytics. But inside of Magento BI, it's native functionality to be able to pull that data directly out of your database and actually perform operations and filtering on it. So whereas with GA, you're building a really good kind of proxy or a lens into revenue, but really the value is in that top of the funnel, the click streams and the impressions and the sessions. With Magento BI, it's the exact opposite. Our value is all about transactions, customer loyalty, repeat purchases, where the value is getting created around your customer's lifetime. And that's a really unique value proposition that when you pair the two up and you connect Google Analytics to Magento BI, you end up with this singular view of your entire customer lifecycle, from the top of the funnel all the way down to the bottom of the funnel and repeat purchases and lifetime value. And that's why the marriage of those two tools is so very valuable, and why it can be risky to use GA alone, particularly as your organization scales, to really try and gain a real understanding of lifetime value, customer loyalty, and kind of where the value exists inside of the product. So definitely encourage everybody to use Google Analytics. I'd say 99% of our merchants that work with Magento BI also use Google Analytics. It's a free tool, no real downside there. But I think really if you want to tap into the value that exists there, one of the best ways to do it is to actually hook it into Magento BI. Okay, so pricing related question. So got a question about it being $100 per month. Are there tiers, etc.? The answer is yes. So the Magento BI Essentials product, which is the one that comes with those dashboards we talked about today and allows you to connect the Magento data required to power those dashboards and one Google Analytics account, that tier starts at $100 per month, but that grows based on your gross merchandise value. So those GMV bands match perfectly to the GMV bands we use for other products at Magento, like our cloud product. only the price points for Magento BI are obviously much more affordable, especially on the Essentials tier as kind of a starting point. So starting at $100 per month, it climbs up to a few $100s per month depending on your different GMV tiers. When you go through the sign-up process, you can view the pricing information. It's one of the steps where you self-select into a tier. As you upgrade to our Pro product, that's where you start to get into more of an enterprise-grade BI solution that has more enterprise-like pricing associated with it. So again, that starts in your baseline version at just $500 per month. But depending on the data sources you add, the amount of data you have, your GMV, it's not uncommon to have a price point that grows into the thousands of dollars per month for the BI Pro product. For an enterprise scale company with all those bells and whistles tacked on. And from that standpoint, if you compare it to any other BI vendor out there in the market, I think you'll find that we are extremely price competitive from that standpoint. So we try to make sure that we're priced to market, we're priced to value, and we have really easy ways for people to get value at the low end of the pricing spectrum, and that's where we're coming from. Great. So let's see here, looking down the other questions. I've got a question here about roadmap. So what is the roadmap for MBI Essentials? Great one. So Essentials has a lot of really exciting things associated with it from a underlying technology perspective, because really at its core, Essentials uses the same technology framework that we use for Magento BI Pro. But because we're limiting it to certain pieces of data and certain types of dashboard, it brings our cost basis down, which allows us to charge much less for it out in the ecosystem. But it also means that as we improve the underlying technology that exists with our Pro product, many times the Essentials tier benefits. So a good example of that is really update cycle time and data latency. So for many BI products out there on the market, it's not uncommon to have your data be delayed by in some cases days, for some more modern tools, many hours. But we've done a ton of work in the last year since RJ Metrics was acquired by Magento to bring our data latency times down. And now we have certain ways of implementing customers on our Pro tier where the data is very, very close to real time. We have cases where they're actually only a few minutes delayed. And the Essentials product has gotten that exact benefit kind of relayed over to it just by virtue of sharing infrastructure and implementation details with the Pro product. So things like that are constantly coming out. From a roadmap perspective specific to Essentials, I'd say really keep your eye on the upcoming Magento releases, because as we get into the sub-releases of Magento 2, you're going to start to see some more functionality built right into Magento that starts to give you a lens into how your data is showing up inside of the Magento database and where there might be value hidden in that. And the connections between that built-in reporting and our Essentials product are going to be very, very well connected. So things like getting your database connected more smoothly and potentially drawing some more even potentially predictive insights from the data that's there. These are the kinds of things that we're starting to experiment with now that I think may, whether they get developed for the Pro side or the core Magento side, may ripple through to the Essentials product in the coming quarters. So being in the Essentials club, I think, is going to be a really fun experience in the next year as you start to get beta level access to some of this exciting stuff we're working on. So question around geography. Is this available in my part of the world? I'm in Brazil. Absolutely it is. So we are fully internationalized from a product standpoint. This comes up in a couple of different ways. Number one, just data availability. I mentioned that we do have data centers that exist internationally. Generally speaking, we have clients all over the globe. I think we have merchants using Magento BI in probably certainly several dozen countries, maybe north of 50 at this point. They are all around the world, and what that means is our tool needs to be able to handle data that is encoded in different character sets, display data for things like product names, category names, etc., that exist in different languages. It's fully supportive of a fully internationalized universe of character sets that might show up natively. The other thing that we support is currency conversion and currency management and display all around the globe. So if you are in Brazil and you've got the Brazilian real as your currency, you can display that inside of your dashboards Or if you prefer, you can convert it to US dollars inside of our platform. That's something available in the Pro product, and actually display it in dollars instead. So there is a lot you can do in terms of internationalization with the product, and we've got a proven track record with serving customers all around the globe. Great. There's a question here around what Magento Commerce Database Tables Essentials uses. This is getting a little more into the technical weeds, but happy to touch on it. We are pulling data really about just the core atomic units of data inside of your Magento universe. So it's customers, orders, products. We're pulling the customer entity table, the customer group table, sales order table, sales order address, and sales order item tables. It's really who bought what when. If you can answer those questions with those data assets, that's what we're pulling in with the Essentials product. And then when you expand to Pro, that's when you start to unlock a lot of the customizations you might make, a lot of the custom attribute values you might have in place. Those things start to become a little bit more available. So wanted to just cover one last question here. And there's a question around the upgrade process between Essentials and Pro, and what's really involved there, and what happens if we start out with Essentials and then we decide that Pro is what we really need. The great thing is, as I mentioned before, these two systems are really built on the same architecture. What the difference is the extent to which we are allowing you to customize and pull in data from Magento tables that you choose and third-party data sources, and also the level of access to our support teams that you get along the way. So upgrading from Essentials to Pro on our end is actually really simple, because what it does is unlock functionality, but does not require any kind of migration, any kind of replatforming, any kind of moving your data from point A to point B, or redefining or repeating work that you've already done. These are all tiers within the same product that, as functionality gets unlocked, your ability to learn more and do more expands. Okay, I'm getting the wrap-up signal from our partners here at Magento. I cannot thank you all enough. I think we've set some records with registrations and turnout here today, so thank you for being a part of the crowd. Thank you for your interest in the Magento BI Essentials product. You can always find me on Twitter at Robert J. Moore if you have questions about the product, etc. Or I'll do you one better, sign up for Essentials today. You can definitely explore the product, kick the tires, and please let me know your feedback and thoughts. And until next time, this is Bob Moore from Magento, signing off. Have a good one.